If you look very, very closely, then you might be able to tell that this is the new 2024 Aeroad CFR, a bike that Canyon says is the fastest at this year's Tour de France. Although they kind of would say that, wouldn't they? Now, as someone who is a big fan of racing bikes, aerodynamics, and Mathieu van der Poel, nearly everyone at road.cc expected me to be absolutely intoxicated by this press release. But in truth, I wasn't. In fact, I managed to wait a whole 2 days before taking this bike for a ride. So, after a few weeks with this latest Aero bike, has it done enough to make me want one? Or is it just another nail in the coffin for the pure Aero bike? Let's get into it. We first saw this 4th generation of Aero just over a month ago, being raced at the Criterium de Dauphiné. And I know what you're going to say, because I thought it as well. It does look rather similar to the previous generation. That was released in 2020. Oh, and yeah, that one looked quite a lot like the first disc brake Aero that was released in 2017. And that was almost identical to the Aero that was released in 2014 with rim brakes, apart from it had disc brakes. It is quite similar to all the other Aeroads. Look a bit deeper though, and you will notice some changes. For example, the head tube is deeper, just like on the Cervelo S5. The bottom bracket area now kind of integrates the non-drive side chainstay, just like on the Orbea Orca Aero. It has a wider fork design that tapers to a narrower head tube, just like on the BMC Team Machine R. And the ends of the through axles are now covered, just like on the new Pinarello Dogma F. It also has an integrated cockpit with flared drops, just like on the new Trek Madone, and now has an increased tyre clearance of up to 32mm tyres, just like on the Specialized Tarmac SL8. It is then kind of like a greatest hits album. Not necessarily anything new or exciting, but all the songs that you'd rather forget are now gone, and you're actually left with all the bits you actually want. Now, before going any further, I should point out that there are actually 5 new things that I really do like about this latest generation of Aeroad. The top tube has been beefed up. Now, that is good for amateurs and pros, because when you crash and your bars come around like that, or your bike falls over at the cafe, they're no longer gonna crack the top tube. And that is a good thing. Number 2, on the bottom, it has a dropout protector. Now this little, I don't know what it's made of, metal, rubber, I think it's metal. It stops when you put your wheel in, it stops you screwing up the bottom of your fork. Now, I haven't seen one of those before. I have no idea if they exist on other bikes, but you can let me know in the comments down below. I think that's a nice touch. Another positive is this integrated cockpit. Now, if you watched my things not to copy off the Tour de France pros, then you will know that one of them was integrated cockpits, because they just don't have the adjustability that most of us amateurs need. This one, however, is surprisingly adjustable. You actually get 20mm of height adjustment using this screw here, so you can take spacers out without having to re-hose the entire bike. And you also get up to 50mm of width adjustment, again, without having to re-hose your brakes. Also on these bars, which are called the core, and they're very similar to the ones on the latest Grail, you can switch out your accessories. So at the moment I've got a Garmin mount on here, it's attached with this bolt, but you can get all sorts of other accessory mounts, so for a GoPro or even clip-on aero bars apparently. Also, talking of the bars, you might have noticed that these are T25 Torx screws. Now they are all over the bike, including the seat post and the bottom. Oh no, they're not. They've lied to me. They said it had T25 bolts everywhere, and the bottle cage ones aren't, so Canyon's dead to me. Now, I do think that bikes should continue to go towards Torx bits, because they're much harder to round out. Most multi-tools have a T25 bit, and it's also refreshing to see that there's not just a random selection of bolts on here, other than the 4mm for the bottle cages, 6mm for the through axles, but literally everything else, so the brake calipers, these bolts up here, the seat post, even the ones on the back of the seat post, are all T25. So you don't need any proprietary tools, which you did need on the last Aeroad to do the headset up. And the last thing I like about this new Aeroad is that it's apparently faster, because we all like going fast. Apparently, this new model fitted with 50mm deep wheels is as quick as the old one fitted with 62mm deep wheels. I'm probably going to struggle to feel that out on the road though. All of that is all well and good, but how does it ride? Let's go and find out. Well, I've been riding the bike for a few weeks now, and let me tell you, even though the press release is pretty boring, the bike is anything but. First impressions is it actually rides pretty similar to the Canyon Ultimate CFR. That's a bike that I've been using for a few months now, and I mean that in the best possible way. The Ultimate CFR is a bike with more classic lines. It doesn't have the Aero tube profiles, and therefore it favours ride comfort over lots of other things. Aero bikes used to be very exciting. For example, I owned a Vias, and I still maintain it is one of the very fastest bikes I've ever ridden. However, it did come with its compromises. It wasn't very comfortable, it was a pain to work on, and the handling wasn't anything to aspire to either. The Aero, meanwhile, it's just like that Ultimate CFR. You don't compromise on the functionality of the bike just to go fast into the wind. The rear end is surprisingly compliant, but if you want even more comfort, then with space for up to 32mm tyres, you could of course fit wider rubber. I've been riding around on 28mm tyres and it's been pretty comfortable, even on the UK's battered roads. In fact, I wish I'd jumped onto this bike a little bit sooner, because I'm seriously considering buying one. Now, I've ridden lots of the other top end bikes. I've ridden a Colnago V4S, Pinarello Dogma F, Cannondale Lab 71 Super 6, even the new Trek Madone, and none of them made me want to trade in my SL7. However, this has got me seriously contemplating it. So if you did, for example, like me, think you were interested in buying one of the new Aeroads, how much would it set you back? Well, this build is £9,749. Now, obviously that is an absolute travesty of an amount of money. You could buy a very nice car for that. But, and I know you're gonna have a go at me in the comments for ever trying to justify this, it is about £2,000 less than most of the other bikes you'll find in the World Tour peloton. The S-Works SL8 is £12,000. Another place that the Aeroad hasn't impressed me is on the climbs. Now, as I said, old Aero bikes used to weigh an absolute ton. And I don't think that weight is absolutely everything. I think for most riders, you'll benefit more from being a bit more aero than having all the lightest equipment. However, this Aeroad weighs 7.07 kilograms. Now that is not far off the UCI weight limit. So even on a lightweight climbing bike, you're not going to be going much lighter than this. That does bring me on to one thing that Canyon said that irritates me slightly. They have bashed on a bit in their press release that this is lighter than the outgoing version. Now that is kind of true, and it's also kind of not true. So the complete bike, 7.05 or 7 kilograms, that is about 130 grams lighter than the outgoing model. However, this bike comes with 50mm wheels instead of 62mm wheels. And if you look at the frame weights, this one weighs 960 grams and the old one weighs 915 grams. This one is heavier. Now that's actually not the end of the world. I know that less than 100 grams is going to make absolutely no difference to my riding and how many of my mates I can beat up climbs. I'd be better off going to the loo before heading out. Other things, the bars, they're excellent. I really like that you can change the adjustability, and also these ends, the drop part of the bar, come off, and then you can actually replace them with other drops. So for example, ones with more flair, which I think is really cool. That allows you to tune your position without having to muck up your whole front end, and it might allow you to try new things, and your body's position is going to make you loads faster than any new bike ever will. What does that leave us with then? Stiffness. Yeah, it's impressive. It doesn't feel like there's been any significant improvements over the last generation, but then the old Canyon Aeroad was already near the top in that area, so you know, that's all right. Yeah, out the saddle feels absolutely wicked during sprints. Obviously, Phillipsen's already used this to 2 victories at the time of filming. Who knows, he's probably got a few more by the time this gets released. But yeah, I am seriously contemplating buying one. If a bank gets robbed in the next few days, you know why. At the start of this video, I asked the question, is this the end of exciting aero bikes? Yeah, I think it is. I don't think that this is an exciting press release. It's an evolutionary change rather than a revolution. But it is an absolutely sublime bike to ride. It is what an aero bike always should have been, adding speed without compromising anywhere else. And that is, to be honest, quite the achievement of the Canyon engineers. What I kind of think is happening is that road bikes are going the same direction as Formula One. We're quite a long way into this set of rule changes that have been stipulated in this case by the UCI, and that means that all the different manufacturers, all the different rivals converge at this one best solution. And this might just be it. So yes, it is boring. Yes, we've seen the deep head tube. Yes, we've seen the deep bladed fork. Yes, we've seen 32 mil of compliance. Yes, we've seen skinnier seat posts offering more compliance. Yes, we've seen integrated cockpits and funky bottom brackets. We've seen it all before. But really, this is what makes a good bike good. So, and Canyon, I think they might have done it best. So yes, road bikes are boring. This is a really good one. Goodbye. I guess it's just hard to get excited about it because the days of brands doing wild things on their aero bikes are gone. Remember when Specialized thought a wing bar was a good idea? Or when Cannondale released the System 6 and everyone thought it was some kind of spaceship? Well, this Aeroad, it's not really a spaceship, but it is probably one of the most refined pure aero bikes on the market right now. Unfortunately, I now have to hand this bike back over to Stu. He's our senior reviewer, and his full review will be up on the road.cc website very soon. His initial impressions, though, are apparently very good, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if this gets a 9 or a 10 out of 10. Let us know whether you think aero bikes are now rather boring down in the comment section below, as well as your thoughts on this latest Canyon Aeroad. If you enjoyed this content, then like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, we'll see you next time. This is an absolute belter of a bike, and you know, do you like it?